Hello, how's it going? It's the week of Thanksgiving here in the States, so I hope we're all getting our plans settled and know where we're going and what we're doing. And whatever you are doing, whether you're celebrating with family, with friends, by yourself, whatever the case may be, I wish you well, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday if you celebrate. Um, if not, then I hope you have a great Thursday. Either way, have a good day. That being said, I wanted to come on here real quick to clarify a little bit the difference between truth and perception, because I oftentimes use them synonymously when I'm talking. So if you've listened to a lot of my videos, it could, I guess, possibly be confusing. So I wanted to kind of make it known that I'm not saying when I say everyone's perception can be different, it's relative based on your belief systems, right? That doesn't mean there's that truth doesn't exist, okay? Because it does. There are some serious universal truths in this universe, okay? The thing is how we interpret them can vary based on our belief systems, which basically impacts our perception, which is that filter that everything gets sifted through, okay? There's so many different ways to interpret that, but I know, like, when I was a little girl, okay? Now this video is not for kids, okay? So hopefully there's no kids and there are no spoilers here. But when I was a little girl, I believed in Santa. Okay, now, historically anyway, we know there was a Saint Nicholas. Okay, the best untruths are grounded in some level of truth. Okay, that being said, on Christmas Eve, it was always really, really cool for me when we would drive home from wherever we were. Usually our grandparents was the last place we'd go to. And on our way home to get into bed, waiting for Santa to arrive, I'd always hope I'd catch a glimpse of him, right? So my brain would almost trick itself in hearing sleigh bells or seeing shadows or things. And I'd be like, oh my God, is that Santa? Like when I was little and we'd go camping or going into the woods or something, I'd always look for Bigfoot. Probably because I grew up with like the $6 million man and the Bionic Woman. And I think they actually had an episode where they fought Bigfoot. I mean, I grew up at a time, 70s and 80s, where I thought, and it's so funny whenever I saw that meme, I thought quicksand was going to be like a real issue in the world. All the shows, all the cartoons and shows, quicksand was a thing, right? Right up to The Princess Bride. I mean, they had quicksand in that too. The Never-Ending Story. I mean, you name it. All of these, like, they always kind of snuck quicksand in there as an issue. So in any case, I thought it existed everywhere, right? Well, usually through experience and learning and things like that, our belief systems switch a little bit, right? But if we believe something strongly enough, our brain can sometimes trick us into maybe perceiving different truths and or what we consider truth, right? That does not take away from the fact that there are truths in the world, okay? So when I say your truth or your perception, I'm not trying to make it sound like there's no real truth in the world, because there is. There are, okay? There are many truths, and it's really up to us to be grounded enough and discerning enough to be able to recognize when something resonates, okay, in a grounded way, in a truthful way, not just as a means to defend a belief system, right? Because beliefs, even though they're pretty steady, they're still fleeting. I've had many beliefs in my life that have changed over time. not usually overnight, right? um, when we think of mindset or mentality, I believed for a while in my life that I was a victim of my circumstance. Now, that belief system never damaged me so much that I became hateful or vindictive or anything like that, thankfully. Okay. But I did. I believed like, oh, I'm never meant to get ahead, or life isn't meant to be easy, or, a lot of that programming we hear, like money doesn't grow on trees or this, that. Well, technically it does because it's paper. Right? Although once upon a time, I think we're kind of weaning out the whole paper trail, but you get my point. So as we believe different things, we perceive different things, right? If somebody believes they're ugly, for instance, they might have confidence issues when putting themselves out there, okay? Well, that's not a truth necessarily, but it does become a perception which can impact the choices you make, okay? You're not going to tell someone who thinks they're ugly. You can tell them they're handsome or they're beautiful as much as you want, but until they believe it, they're never going to receive that information truly. It's never going to really like hit them. They'll just kind of be like, oh, yeah, thank you. But they don't believe it because it almost like bounces off of them because that's their perception, right? So they would have to really repeat that they are beautiful or they are handsome over and over and over again to reprogram the brain and challenge every time the opposite comes up. Say, no, I am this, I am that, right? And repeat that affirmation, if you will, until it really sinks in. And there's no like necessarily integrated moment. It's just until one day when someone says something and you notice mindfully that it hits different. And you're like, that is true. I don't feel uncomfortable when someone says that to me now because I do believe that, right? And then therefore there's like a shift in what you would consider your truth in a sense. Okay, that's just one way to look at it. But there are universal truths. There are. And there are truths as far as facts go. Okay, now even facts can get distorted. We see that happen all the time. But be mindful of the energy when you feel that you have to defend a truth or a fact. Ask yourself why. Because facts and truths really don't need defense. They don't. People will argue them. People will swear up and down that that's not true. But it doesn't change the fact that it is if it is. So those things always have a way of kind of coming out later or in a different way for different people. And there are some people, regardless, will never see the truth, whatever that is, whatever we're talking about. You know, some people would argue around politics. Other people would argue around faith or religion. Other people would argue around, I don't know, there's so many things because we're all human and we're very complex life forms. Okay. My point is that there are some inherent truths for sure. And people can argue them. They can use all kinds of cognitive distortions to kind of play with the truth. And that's fine. Whatever. Let people be. It's not our job to control people. It's not our job to convince people. There are certain circumstances where we may, I don't know, like if it's a life or death situation, we may have to defend something or legal or something like that, right? That's one of the reasons why I had a cousin who asked me one time, like, how come you didn't become a lawyer? I'm like, because it's gross. No offense to any lawyers, but to me, it's like so not black and white. It's so distorted because it's really about who's the bigger manipulator. Okay, now I'm not trying to bash lawyers because God knows for the few out there that are with good intentions, we need them in this world right now to some degree, right? With the way the world runs right now, at least in this country, we need a legal system and we need lawyers who can represent people. So I'm not trying to bash lawyers because I think like most professions, people get into it for the right reasons, kind of like politics. Most people get into politics because they want to help. They want to give back because it is a public service in a sense, right? At least it's supposed to be. But like most things, then they start distorting the idea of compromise to, before you know it, there's corruption. Okay. Now that doesn't mean every politician is corrupt. I don't know. Or every lawyer or things like that. But, you know, I'm just kind of highlighting that people can distort a ham sandwich. Okay. You name it. And ultimately that's fine because one person's trash is another person's treasure, right? You can distort a ham sandwich and there's going to be people out there that are going to love your distortion and they're going to cling to it and they're going to defend it and they're going to scream it from the top of their lungs because they feel it needs defending. Just be mindful of the energy. When you are willing to hurt other people, whether emotionally, pridefully, egotistically, or physically, you really need to ask yourself why and to what end. Are you really defending truth or are you defending ego? Because they are not the same thing. And it's hard to discern sometimes, but that's why it's really important to slow yourself down, not be reactive, but instead be responsive. And even then, sometimes we get it wrong because sometimes there are times that we wish we spoke up and we didn't. And maybe that was to avoid conflict. Well, I get it, but avoiding conflict doesn't always make you the bigger person. Sometimes it makes you the pushover. I don't know. And I'm really not trying to pick on anyone because at the end of the day, I think most of us have made mistakes on both ends at some point or another, okay? And oftentimes it's because we didn't take the time to ground ourselves and really question what needs to be done here. Is it walking away? Is it calming myself down and then using effective communication to address the situation? You can use all the skills in the world. It doesn't mean that the other person is going to reciprocate. And that's why the skills are for you. We're never going to control anyone. And if we try, that's all it is trying to control. It's not my job to determine what you think. All I'm doing out here isn't trying to push an ideal. It's to try and help people to get to know themselves better and understand what makes me tick and is that serving me, right? Are my behaviors, are my belief systems, are they serving me? Because there's so many different kinds, types. I mean, so many, right? And oftentimes because we grow up believing a certain way that it must be true. But ideally, the hope is that everyone stays open-minded enough that if other facts, right, or truths come across our path that resonate but confuse us, that we're still willing to sit with it and not just blindly dismiss, right? To integrate, but be discerning. We want to observe, we don't want to absorb everything, right? We have to look at the patterns. We have to figure out, is this something that's true or not? Or is it just another person projecting onto me in such a confident way that it must be true? And that's where it can get confusing, the idea of truth versus perception. Because what you perceive really is based on what you believe. But this is what I mean. Just because you believe it doesn't make it true necessarily. Doesn't make it untrue either. I don't know. Only you can kind of tell. But the truth itself is usually this calm flow in the background. It's grounded, it's flowing, it's steady. That's where truth lies. It's that calm flow that they say created the Grand Canyon. Didn't come in as a rush. It came in steady, consistent, repetitive, right? However, there are some things that come in that way that aren't true. So I don't know. Only you can discern with your life, right? I don't know if that helped. I have it in my head. It's not necessarily coming out my mouth. So hopefully it makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving week. Coming into the holidays, stay grounded, stay calm, prioritize your peace. Okay. And have a good one. Talk soon.